Everyone, the time is now 7:30 p.m. I ask all to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We're going to start tonight with public participation. We have a packed agenda this evening and plus a Vita Plena award. So we will hear all public comment at the beginning of our meeting tonight. We appreciate community participation, but please understand that the board does not engage in dialogue or discussion with public speakers. If there is a specific question or comment that requires follow-up, an appropriate administrator will respond at a later time. Lastly, pursuant to Board Policies 2230 and 830, individuals addressing the board are expected to conduct themselves with respect and civility. In the interest of time, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And in order to respect everyone's time and hear everyone's public comments tonight, we will alert you when 2 minutes have passed. At that time, you will have 1 more minute to complete your comments before we move on with the next speaker. Thank you for understanding, as it's important to respect everyone's time. Actually, I apologize. You're right, I'm sorry. We have to go back up again. We're not going to start with public comment. We have to start with the public hearing for the LTHS proposed reduction in force of teaching positions. I'm sorry about that. Okay. This one, I guess. This one, okay. That's what I thought. Seeing as that there are no comments for the public hearing, we will now close the public hearing. So that's a formality. Sorry, thank you for letting us go back to that. So now we will go back up to agenda-related, our public comments, public participation. So if Marilyn, you would call our first speaker, please.
Jeanette Quirk. Carrie, so you want the timer to be at 2 minutes and then 1 more?
Ryan's got it.
Okay, we'll cover
it. Hi, is that right?
That's
Can
good.
you hear? Okay, good to see everybody. I was going to make notes and I was first, so that's what I get for not making it here last time because I had a haircut. What I'm going to talk about today, my title is Pitchforks or Pencils. So I'm Jeanette Quirk, I'm from LaGrange Highlands, and I had 2 daughters that went through LT. Can't believe how old they're getting, because I'm not, but love LT, and that's why I'm here. I'm always very interested in everything that happens in the schools because I work in the schools. Unlike so many people I've heard from in the last few years, I did not grow up here. None of my relatives grew up here. None of my relatives live here, but I came here on purpose. And I grew up on the south side, south suburbs, southeast side in Riverdale. People would always say, Riverside? I'm like, where's Riverside? I'm like, no, not Riverside, Riverdale. Okay, so I looked it up on the map and I saw it was near LaGrange and there was all this green space around it. And we have forest preserves down there too, but I was like, whoa, there's all these, green space around. And then we had a friend that lived in LaGrange Park and we looked at it on the map more and saw all those forest preserves to the south. We're like, this is great place to live by the city. And where I grew up in Riverdale, we had a lot of industry. And so I really know what it's like to have industry, steel mills, several oil refineries. My husband grew up in Joliet. And so that landscape was always changing, but it was never really getting a lot greener. And that's why a lot of people migrated out over time. So we came here and oh, is that already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So won't think anymore, but I live off 55th Street, and after 1 year of being here 32 years ago, the Quarry Road closed and all the traffic now, 55th Street. Still kind of rattles the windows, especially when they're open in the summer. So I really understand what it's like to have those things change from where you started. Stereogenics was another difficult experience. I work right in the heart of stereogenics, so I understand that too. And the only other part of my story is I read.
There's 1 more minute left.
1 more minute? Okay.
Yeah.
So so many people read all the little house books. And the Farmer Boy one I read when I was about 9. And one of the early chapters in that is in the old-time school in the whatever it was, like 40s or 50s in upstate New York. They came in to thrash the schoolmaster. And it was sort of a thing that would happen in these rural schools where like all the bullies in town would come in and they're gonna thrash the schoolmaster. And I was like, oh my gosh, because in this story, and it had really happened, they had killed a man in another town the year before. And they were coming to that town. And if you know the story, you know how it works out, and otherwise you can go read it. But it just blew my mind. So I just wanna say, like, we gotta put the pitchforks down, we gotta pick up the pencils, get back to what we want to do, which is collaborate and create a great environment for our students and for our families and for the whole community. So thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. Marilyn?
Jennifer Hauk.
My name is Jennifer Hauk, and I'm here as a concerned Pleasantdale parent. In its foundational principles of effective governance, the Illinois Association of School Boards lists fundamental duties in order for effective governance of school boards. The first responsibility listed is clarifying the district's purpose. The second obligation is connecting with the community. Specifically, the IASB states that this is the process by which school boards actively involve diverse citizens in dialogue, deliberation, and collaborative thinking around common interests for their public schools. Effective community engagement is essential to create trust and support. On tonight's agenda, you have an item listed regarding releasing closed meeting minute discussions to the public. You've broken our trust. The first step in moving forward with transparency is releasing these closed meeting discussions around the land sale to the public. I was curious about the community feedback, as it has been mentioned at board meetings and included in written statements. I submitted a FOIA request a few weeks ago, and I thank Ms. Muscolino for complying with my request. At the December 19th meeting, board members mentioned strong community support for this sale. At that time, you had 17 total responses, with 5 showing support. From November 30th to February 28th, I counted a total of 152 responses. Only approximately 7% of these responses were in favor of this sale going industrial. Today, you released a statement regarding continued negotiations as recently as February 17th. Would you have provided this update if it weren't for the FOIA response that was due today to a Pleasantdale community member who requested emails to and from the Prologis during the time period this offer would have been received? I'm thankful you rejected the letter of intent. However, it is what you continue to omit from your public communication that concerns me. Despite the overwhelming outcry against industrial use of this property, you still have not made the commitment that this sale would comply with current zoning that protects our children's health. What guarantee do we have that the new terms and conditions you mention won't be more friendly to industrial bidders, perhaps allowing them more time to pursue those legal remedies that have been mentioned? You say you are listening and working to fulfill your obligations as board members. When you go back to work on this sale, I implore you to do so understanding your obligation to our community. You have heard from the public, and it is overwhelmingly against the sale of this land to an industrial bidder. Previous board members have made it clear they would not entertain industrial bids. If you are fulfilling your obligations, you will do the same.
Trustee and Mayor Pro Tem Village of Burr Ridge, Guy Francesi.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Guy Franzese. I'm an elected trustee in the Village of Burr Ridge, a position I've been elected to for 3 four-year terms. I'm also Mayor Pro Tem. Prior to my trustee position, I served for the 16 years on the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals for Burr Ridge. I served as a planning and zoning commissioner during the period of the greatest growth in the history of Burr Ridge. I helped guide the development of our village center with all of its fine shops and restaurants. The development of Lifetime Fitness, 5 Seasons Sports Club, 2 hotels, 14 office buildings, 2 medical centers, and over 18 subdivisions. I helped provide guidance for the annexation and subsequent zoning of over 120 parcels of land in Burr Ridge. I have participated and attended in over 300 Plan Commission meetings where there have been public hearings. I have significant planning and zoning experience. I'm a lifelong District 204 resident and an LT graduate. You will recall I spoke to you at the February 23rd meeting as representative of the Village of Burr Ridge, Mayor and Board of Trustees. I read a resolution that the Village of Burr Ridge unanimously supports the current Willow Springs zoning for the LTHS property located at Willow Springs Road and 79th Street. The Village of Burr Ridge denounces the sale to any industrial developers and any industrial development on the property or any attempts to de-annex the property from Willow Springs. I'm here tonight to speak about zoning. Looking at your resumes, I don't see any zoning experience. Your attorneys don't seem to have any zoning experience either. I may be wrong, but I don't see any. Since I'm standing here in a place of learning, I would like to educate you about concepts of good planning and good zoning. Back in 2005 and 2006, I attended the Willow Springs public hearings, where the zoning for the LT property was thoroughly discussed and later approved. As you would expect, there was much discussion by the residents, the Willow Springs Plans Commissioners, and the trustees as to what the zoning could be and should be for this parcel. You may also ask how the current zoning of single-family residential, senior housing, and light and retail was arrived at. I will guide you. As you know, the LT parcel is bounded by industrial zoning. To the east, UPS, Country Club to the north. To the west is single-family residential, Pleasantdale Elementary School, and White Buffalo Park. There is residential to the south. Taking the surrounding zoning into account, how should the LT property should have been zoned? Some have argued that since the UPS industrial property exists to the east, the LT property should be zoned industrial. This is poor planning and bad zoning, as it places intense industrial uses immediately adjacent to the Country Club to the north, residential, elementary school, park to the west, and residential to the south. Industrial zoning fails to consider the 7+ acres that Pleasantdale Park District owns as well. You know that's 7 acres. Your property is bound by it. Our property is bound by it. You will also have known that if you would engage the Park District back in 2022, a park surrounding any industrial use is poor planning and bad zoning. In 2006, the Willow Springs Board of Trustees did approve single-family...
Sir, it's been 3 minutes. We need to move on to the next speaker.
...residential senior housing and light retail for the property.
We need to
Zoning
finish.
employs the concept of transitional zoning. In other words, there is a definitive transition from the intense industrial use of UPS to the much less intense use of an elementary school.
You have
park,
10 seconds.
The development for zoning allows for this light retail on the east side, along with the senior housing and single-family residential on the west side. The zoning transitions from heavy industrial use to UPS to lighter, less intense use of light retail and less intense senior living to the west. It is good planning and strong, appropriate zoning
Okay,
for
we
this
are going to move
parcel.
on to the next speaker. Thank you.
It is also allows for
Carolyn,
the
can you please
Pleasantdale
call our
Park
next
District
speaker?
to proceed with their vision for the 7 acres. Again, good planning and
It's a
zoning.
statement to be read.
Thank you.
Statement to be read by Dale Holmquist. In the interest of trust and transparency, there is no option except to completely release the meeting notes and deliberations regarding the LTHS land sale. These meetings were held behind closed doors, and our community demands to see the official record and documents. Any board cannot effectively function in the interest of its consultants without transparency. Does this board have an OMA-trained leader who's been overseeing these actions? Please address. Thank you. Fred Whiting's next.
Mr. Whiting, before we begin, I noticed that you signed up twice to speak, and you'll have one opportunity tonight to speak
That's
this
fine.
evening. Thank you.
Let me know when my clock starts. I hope that wasn't part of it.
There you go.
To Superintendent Waterman and the Board of Education, you have demonstrated the utmost disrespect to the Pleasantdale community over the last 12 months. With secretly courting Bridge Industries since last March, this has been a sham of a sale process. Trying to push this through under the cover of darkness with the slimmest of legal requirements, knowingly violating OMA 6 times and having no discussions with the neighboring communities, Willow Springs, Pleasantdale School, or Pleasantdale Park, whose property you included in your appraisal. This followed with continuing to entertain an industrial bid from Prologis over the last 2 months, even after hearing an outpouring of community concerns several times. This has caused immense agony and frustration. You have played us as fools, and now expect these letters to make amends. You have a far way for redemption. Forgiveness is a powerful human trait, but it is rarely exercised without first asking for it. Both letters come out now clearly as a last-ditch effort to try and salvage an election. For this, you should be truly ashamed. The lack of sensitivity to the community and mismanagement of the process to sell one of the school's most valuable assets demonstrates both poor judgment and failed leadership. The constant rumor that the deal is off, spread by your supporters and finally Mary Newman with certitude, was meant in each instance to minimize the opposition to this sale. Your 310 letter blatantly tries to suggest LT is no longer negotiating, yet the letter clearly leaves open the possibility to negotiate at a higher price. Also, consider the character of persons who would disclose the school's intentions to close political confidants, yet leave their constituents in the dark to agonize over the future of their community for months. Maintaining simple promise of transparency could have saved most of us from feeling the pain of such greed at the expense of Pleasantdale. When you and the board have violated the public trust as often as you have, the letters of 310 and 320 are far from acknowledging your mistakes and a poor attempt to make things right. You owe the Pleasantdale community and all LT residents an apology for wasting so much of our precious energy, money, and time away from our daily lives. Combating you and your small army of insensitive antagonists blind to the destruction of our neighborhoods and for creating such a divisive atmosphere. I strongly urge you and the board to rewrite the 320 letter and to commit in writing to the necessary steps that need to be taken to make this community whole again. Those being, have the property reappraised at the current zoning and share the results with the community. Commit in writing that LT will not entertain bids from an industrial developer.
It's been 3 minutes,
and
Mr. Whiting.
commit to hold future meetings with all the community stakeholders as was professionally done in 2005. Please let the healing begin.
Kathy McCarthy.
Hello, my name is Kathy McCarthy. I'm a Willow Springs resident and a Pleasantdale mom. I initially came here today to thank you for pausing the land sale and spend the rest of my remarks asking for transparency, public engagement, and adherence to the property zoning in a future sale. But then I read your news release this afternoon stating that one of your original industrial bidders submitted a second bid after the Village of Willow Springs voted to reaffirm its existing zoning prohibiting industrial. Was this new bid unsolicited, or was it part of your efforts to find a buyer at your $55 million price point? In multiple meetings, residents and public officials repeatedly implored you to reject industrial development and start over. Yet, when this new bid came in from an industrial developer on February 17th, you didn't outright reject it. Instead, you directed your legal counsel to enter into discussions. I guess we should feel lucky that eventually this board and its legal counsel found the terms did not align with those of the district. What, in fact, are those terms? I encourage you to engage with us on this. Was it because you believe industrial belongs nowhere near an elementary school? Or were you unhappy this industrial bidder gave itself an extra 180 days to seek a change in zoning? Or because they were looking for tax breaks from Cook County that might reduce your future property tax revenues? We don't know, and I have a feeling you won't say. You've shielded most of your discussions on this topic from the LT community using 11 separate closed sessions. You should have discussed much of the sales process publicly, but you repeatedly chose not to, potentially in violation of the Open Meetings Act. That's why this board's conduct is currently under investigation by the Illinois Attorney General. And let me say this clearly, despite comments by a member of this board to the contrary, you have already violated the Open Meetings Act. In your response to requests for reviews on this topic, your attorney listed 6 dates prior to November 30th, 2022 that you spoke about this sale in closed session without properly voting and citing on the appropriate exemption. Unintentional or not, these are violations, and your legal counsel has admitted to this noncompliance in response to the Attorney General. Additionally, the reason you're reviewing a year's worth of closed session minutes tonight is because you failed to conduct the 6-month review of those discussions as required by law. This is another violation your attorney admitted to in your response letter. The Attorney General is now looking at those 6 meetings plus others to see if any additional other violations have occurred within those closed discussions. Because of this prior conduct, please forgive our community's skepticism. As you review those closed session minutes tonight, my hope is you finally choose transparency. And remember, when it comes to selling a property, the Open Meetings Act only allows a public body to enter into closed session for the narrow purpose of setting a price. Your decisions here have the power to reshape an entire community. We deserve to hear our elected leaders discuss that future out in the open. Thank you.
Donna Wheat.
So I'm new to all this stuff about the selling of our land, because it is our land, we pay taxes, and I don't understand it, as I said in my writing, that I'm trying to figure out how did we get here? Because it can't be really about the money when there's people involved. I mean, if money is your priority, you kind of don't belong on the board, period. So I'm thinking it's zoned residential, and you guys are doing like industrial bids. So I'm confused, because I live in Brookfield, and my kids went through LT, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on here. You all live here, don't you, or do you not, or do you not care? And I'm trying to figure this out because I'm like, this can never happen. But y'all are doing it. And not only are you doing it in front of us, but you're lying to us on top of it. You're going behind closed doors, you got this bid coming in, you got that bid coming in. If it's zoned residential, I can't figure out what made you think that you can do industrial unless there's money going somewhere, and maybe you think you can pay off Willow Springs or somebody else to get your way. Because if our school needs to be fixed, which you have money to start, I don't know why you're not doing it. Little at a time. We pay a lot of taxes here. And personally, from what I see what's going on in these schools now, I would like to cross that off my tax bill and not freaking pay it at all. Because it's not worth it to us. Because if you don't care about our students, our children, the air we breathe, who cares if they have a new computer? Who cares if they can't go out and play? I mean, you gotta think about the basics, common sense, people. This is like a common sense issue. If it was zoned residential, why are you trying to change it and get bids for more money and more money? You take a lot of our money. The government gives you money. For every student that walks in that door, the federal government gives you money. Well, if we all take our kids out, then what are you gonna have? A nice, beautiful, empty building. I mean, you gotta think about this in the basic terms of common sense. It's not always about the money. It's about the people. And you are supposed to be representing our children and all of us here in these villages. That's really all I have to say. I just want to know why and how this happened to begin with.
The next statement was requested to be read by Melissa Grassoni. There are 2 items on tonight's agenda that I would like to address, but first I would like to ask you to consider revising your board meeting format. The board frequently conducts closed sessions prior to hearing public comments. One of the fundamental roles of a school board is connecting with the community. How do you expect to have engagement with the community when you frequently deliberate in closed sessions before hearing from the public? Please revise your meeting format to provide the board the opportunity to hear public comments before entering into closed sessions. The first agenda item I would like to address is the review and destruction of verbatim recordings of closed sessions. I would like to remind the board that the OMA prohibits destruction of any verbatim recordings for closed sessions that occurred within the last 18 months. Also on tonight's agenda is the review of closed session minutes to determine if those minutes should remain confidential. The Open Meetings Act requires the
these reviews to occur every 6 months. The board has not conducted this review since last March. Thank you for taking action tonight to correct this error. In the past year, the board has discussed the sale of the Willow Springs property in closed sessions on 9 dates. Last year on April 18th, May 16th, June 21st, September 19th, October 17th, November 21st, and December 5th, and this year on January 23rd and February 21st. The OMA requires you to now determine if the need for confidentiality still exists. Arguably, most of those discussions shouldn't have been done in closed session, but the board claims the land sale discussions fall under the setting of a sale price OMA exception. The board set the price at $55 million. LT's recent update indicates that the board is no longer pursuing a sale at that $55 million minimum sale price. Therefore, the discussions related to setting a sale price should no longer remain confidential because the established sale price no longer applies. Notably, the Open Meetings Act does not require any discussions to occur in closed session. It permits certain topics to be discussed in closed session, but does not require it. The board failed to cite the setting a sale price OMA exception on 6 closed session agendas. The board also failed to cite the setting a sale price exemption when moving into those 6 closed sessions. It's possible that the closed session discussions also exceeded what the OMA permits to occur in closed sessions. There has been a total lack of openness and transparency with the sale of the Willow Springs property, due in part to the board's failures related to the Open Meetings Act. Whether the failures were inadvertent, intentional, or due to bad legal advice doesn't matter. The lack of transparency has resulted in the community's loss of trust and loss of confidence in the board. As you make your determination tonight about closed session minutes, I ask you to remember that strategic plan goal 4 is to build confidence and engagement with families and the communities through improved communication, collaboration, and transparency. Please take a step towards rebuilding the confidence you have lost and a step towards more transparency by releasing minutes. Please release all closed meeting minutes in which the sale of the Willow Springs property was discussed. Jennifer Wolf.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jennifer Wolf. I am an LTHS alum and resident of the Pleasantdale community. I am here today to ask the board members to release the closed session minutes in regards to the land sale. In August 2002, I had my freshman experience day. During that day, they kept instilling into us the motto, "We are LT." Throughout the rest of my 4 years, "We are LT" was something to believe in. Even as an alum, I still lived through that motto and was proud that I attended and graduated from what was once a fantastic school. However, the "We Are LT" motto seems to be becoming a thing of the past. On March 12th, an article and letter was published that states the board has admitted to the Open Meetings Act violation in regards to the land sale. This violation happened not once, not twice, but 6 times. Once I can see as a mistake. Twice is too many times, but we can still learn from our mistakes. 6 times is not a mistake. This seems intentional. How is the LT community supposed to put our faith and trust in the board that violates the Open Meetings Act over and over again? As well, in an article from the Center of Illinois Politics, School Board President Carrie Dillon was quoted, "The school board's work is not controversial, but there are individuals and groups out there trying to make it out to be." Ms. Dillon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think the board violating the Open Meetings Act 6 times and having the land appraised for what it is not zoned for is controversial. I want to get back to We Are LT, and the first step in doing that is to rebuild trust with the board. One way you can do that is to start being transparent and release the closed session minutes in regard to the land sale. Thank you.
Sue Goby.
Hello, I have a very brief statement. I read your communication issue this afternoon and am pleased with the additional information that was included. I'm also pleased with the statement that you're not seeking or considering bids under the previous terms and conditions or minimum price. I do, however, continue to have concerns regarding the future terms and conditions. I have 2 requests. The first one is I request that the board include the public in discussions. Publishing the draft document and allowing for public comment would have enabled this board to hear from all interested parties. You could have edited the document and eliminated this scandal which will live long in the memories of the district's residents. Secondly, I request that this board include a condition in those future terms and conditions that future buyers' development plans satisfy the zoning code of Willow Springs. As I mentioned last time we spoke, I no longer give this board the benefit of the doubt. You've broken my trust and the trust of most of my neighbors. Meeting these two requirements would go a long way toward regaining that trust. Thank you.
Stephanie Farmer.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Farmer. I am an LT alumna and Pleasantdale mom. I've had a very busy week as an educator this week, so I'm not as well prepared, so you're welcome. I'll be brief tonight. I saw today you'll be discussing the confidentiality of closed session minutes and the destruction of verbatim recordings of closed sessions. In light of all recent events and in the spirit of communication and full transparency, I request that all closed session meetings, minutes, and verbatim recordings are retained and please made public. While I wish this would have happened on January 26, I do thank this board for stopping the current sale. I look forward to a new start with open communication with the Pleasantdale District D204, the Pleasantdale Park District, the Village of Willow Springs, and all of our community. I truly look forward to the sale of the acreage in a way that will benefit all stakeholders, including the community of District 107 and the current and all of our children, the future students of Lyons Township. Currently, the LT community has turned our attention to the upcoming election. At the League of Women Voters Forum, I was thrilled to see 5 of 7 candidates agree that they would not want to sell the land to any industrial buyer. I was, however, disappointed that the 2 current board members did not commit to this same feeling, to keep the future sales within the current zoning parameters set by the Village of Willow Springs. I ask that these candidates and the entire board commit to selling within the current zoning set by the Village of Willow Springs. Change the terms and conditions in your future negotiations to include these. As the speaker before me noted, we are all LT. Thank you for your time tonight.
Jessica McLean.
Hi, I'm Jessica McLean. I'm also a little unorganized this evening, so my apologies. There's just 2 data points that are kind of floating around out there that I'm actually a little nervous are reflecting a little bit poorly on our students, and I'm hoping to put a little context around them if I possibly could. One of them is that 28% chronic absenteeism. That is a number I think that came out the last year after COVID. And I think probably all of us experienced, even in our own workplaces, that first year after COVID was kind of hard to get back into the swing of things. And a lot of us, I think, experienced that slow to return. If you'll look, Hinsdale, Naperville Central, and Naperville North all had numbers between 21 and 28%. And that same chronic absenteeism number. So although it looks like a hard number, we are aligned with other districts in the area. And I believe this year, within the first 3 quarters, LT is at about 15%. So they're moderating. They're getting back to getting kids in class on a daily basis, probably much like everyone is in their workplace. I just think it looks like our students aren't attending school, and again, that looks like a poor reflection on our students and our families, and I don't think anyone wants that information to be out there about our kids. That isn't our students, that isn't their work ethic, at least probably not any of yours or mine. They're good kids who go to school and their parents encourage them to do that, and I think that's important that that number has context, because that's not what our kids or our families are about. The other data point that's out there It's about the SAT, that it's something like, 49.4 of our students are not proficient in
more minute.
ELA and 51% are not proficient in math. Real quickly, in 2017, the state mandated that all of our students in all schools take the SAT exam, and before that, only kids were a lot of times self-selecting to take that exam. Those were kids that knew they were prepping before that. Those were kids that were really motivated to take those exams. Now all of the students in our whole student body need to take that exam. And some kids are not motivated to take that exam. It may not be a priority for them. So there's a different set of data going into those, that whole set of data coming out of it. So I just think it's important that we know that you have to have context around this data, because we don't want our students to think anything negative about themselves, or that this class isn't as brilliant and talented as gifted as previous classes. It's important that we don't send the wrong message at all about these kids by just throwing numbers out there. I think that's important, and I think we would all agree we have to be careful when we put numbers out about our students, that we're careful what we're saying about our kids. Thank you so much.
That concludes the public comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, next up we have our LTEA President, Andrew Joannis.
Good evening, board members. This month, I wanted to highlight the amazing teachers here at LT. There are approximately 300 teachers between the two campuses. The average teacher at LT has 15 years of experience, and 91% have at least a master's degree. There are several teachers who have earned their PhDs, and a few who are nationally board certified. This means that LT teachers have over 4,500 years of experience and have engaged in approximately 16,000 hours of graduate work. The teachers are not only committed to providing an excellent education, but also a well-rounded experience for all students. A majority of teachers are involved in extracurricular activities. This means that the 100 clubs and 30 sports that are staffed by the LT faculty. Clearly, the staff believes in and models the school motto, Vita Plena. The teachers continue their commitment to collaborating with the administration and the board to address any issues or concerns that LT faces. Working together, we can truly make LT a great place for all students. The teachers appreciate the continued collaboration around topics such as summer workshops and committee meetings. We value our long-standing tradition of open communication. The teachers would like to express their gratitude to the board for their continued support for all LT students, both in academics and extracurricular activities. We appreciate the many ways in which the board members demonstrate their dedication to the students of LT. One example of this board's support is for student trips. Here are some of the trips that are going to happen during spring break. Shannon Murray and Gabby Williams will be taking 12 students to Germany. Sean Sweeney, Alex Wojcik, Julia Ozols, and Sheldon Harris are taking 21 Latin students to Greece and Italy. Lynn Meister and Christy Scriba are heading to Italy with 22 Italian students. Jan Matthews is going to New York with 45 orchestra students. Liz Martinez is completing her second part of her French exchange. John Music, David Hartley, Julie Phillips, and Shara Skoda are also heading to New York with 70 students from the choir. And finally, Mark Dahl and Paul Meisty just returned from Disney World with 140 band students. Imagine traveling with 140 teenagers with their instruments. Well, all of these are amazing opportunities for students to experience and learn from. I would like to thank the teachers for dedicating their time and efforts in providing these opportunities to the students of LT. Finally, I'd like to congratulate our beloved school nurse, Julie Loftus. She truly deserves to be celebrated for her amazing career. Congratulations. We hope that everyone has a great spring break and comes back rested and refreshed to finish our remaining 2 months of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Wish I was going on those trips. Sounds awesome. Next up, we have our student representative to the board, Mr. Matthew Walsh.
Thank you, President Dillon. This month held many exciting events for the student body here at LT. Whether it was the plays being held at the PAC or LT students going across the country, there's plenty to celebrate this month. Starting off with athletics. A huge congratulations to the players of the Special Olympics basketball teams for their incredible finishes at the state last weekend. The blue team was 3rd in state, while the white team was 4th in state.
Cool.
On February 24th, boys varsity basketball beat Curry to win the IHSA Regional Championship. And after a very close and exciting game, the boys basketball team fell short to Hinsdale Central at the sectional semifinal. But congrats on a great season, guys. The girls' varsity basketball season also came to a close after their game against Whitney Young. They had an amazing season and made it all the way to the sectional semifinals. The athlete of the week is Catherine Summerfield for girls track and field. She's the first female runner in school history to run a 1,600-meter race in under 5 minutes, and is one of the top distance runners in the whole state. Congratulations to LT boys wrestler Griff Powell for placing 3rd at the freshman-sophomore state tournament. Additionally, congrats to the LT boys swim team for placing 11th in the state finals for the 200-meter. They set a new team record and placed all as all-state swimmers. The varsity girls soccer team are having a great start of their season, already having 2 huge wins against Whitney Young and Jones High School. And girls water polo is having a tremendous season so far, having a huge win against Whitney Young and having a current record of 7-1. Next, moving on to activities. Extracurriculars such as ping pong club, fishing club, ultimate frisbee, and yoga club, just to name a few, have had their meetings this month. Last week was the Save Promise Club Say Something Week. The LT Save Promise Club organized a variety of activities to help teach students how to look for warning signs and signals from individuals who may be a threat to themselves or others, and to say something to a trusted adult to get help. Last Wednesday, March 15th, juniors took the Illinois Science Assessment, and at the same time, the seniors had their senior seminar at the Vaughn Building. They were able to hear guest speakers and how to approach their next step in life, and also were able to play some games and enter raffles. LT's very own Menagerie was named one of the top literature magazines in the country as a literary arts magazine Pacemaker finalist. LT Theater has been hard at work with their recent performance of Mavros. Students were able to direct and act in one-act plays. The performances were on March 10th and 11th at the PAC. Choir students recently performed at their solo and ensemble on March 7th. At this event, the choir students performed in over 100 solos, duets, and ensembles. Last weekend was the spring snowball retreat. Students were able to connect, play games, and have a great time in Wisconsin. Model UN won Best Small Delegation at the Francis Parker Model. Congratulations, guys. And additionally, Model UN hosted the 9th alignment here at LT, where several schools came to participate in various committees. On March 3rd, the LT Marching Band went to Disney World, as Mr. Johanna said. They were able to perform in a parade and even got to have some fun on the rides. Some of the students in LT German Club are currently in Germany for a 2-week exchange, which is very exciting. A huge congratulations to the LT Steppers, who placed 3rd at the Stomp the Violence Step Show at Thorn Ridge High School. They also had the incredible opportunity to perform at the United Center this month. LT Science Olympiad team placed in 11 out of 23 events at their regional competition, qualifying them for state. And lastly, 6 of the student managers from WLTL went to New York City on the weekend of February 23rd. There they won 7 national awards at the 83rd Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Conference and got to hear from many guest speakers in the radio industry. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks for reminding us about all the amazing accomplishments our students achieve every day, every week, every month. And the board would like to wish all of our students a much-needed spring break with their friends and family. So enjoy that. Take a little bit of a break. Great. Next up, we have our superintendent's report. Dr. Waterman.
Thank you, President Dillon. In addition to all of the highlights, athletic and activity highlights that Matthew just shared, I want to congratulate LT's National Merit finalists as well. More than 1.5 million students nationwide enter the merit program as juniors. by taking the PSAT qualifying test. High scores are designated semifinalists, representing less than 1% of the state's graduating class. So in total, just over 16,000 academically talented seniors qualified nationwide. Out of over those 16,000 semifinalists, approximately 15,000 qualify as finalists, and those finalists will find out in March if they are merit scholarship winners. So these students have to maintain an outstanding academic record throughout their senior year. They have to be endorsed and recommended by our principal, Dr. Tyrell. They have to submit SAT scores that confirm their earlier qualifying tests, and then complete a scholarship application detailing their leadership and their community activities. So I want to highlight this evening the following students who were named National Merit finalists. Ann Dillon, Taylor Dudek, Ella Happel, Nicholas Lorenzen, Peter Mikulski, Matthew Ozark, Josephine Powell, Joseph Wall, and Anna Ziert. What an amazing example of the academic excellence here at LT. So congratulations to all students. I want to highlight the FOIA report. The district has received a variety of FOIA requests, and all of those are included as an itemized list within your personal board packet here this evening. And then to conclude, we have a special presentation here this evening. So it's been my honor to present a Vita Plena Award recipient for our third quarter. So as a reminder, our Vita Plena Award has been presented by the superintendent to a deserving individual since the mid-90s. The themes that are typically present in our Vita Plena Award winners are inspiration, creativity, dedication, and commitment, and really just overall someone who's selfless and goes above and beyond in the work that they do with our students and our families. All of those qualities, plus many, many more, are evident in Julie Loftus, who is our recipient here this evening. Julie is a certified school nurse at North Campus and is a natural choice to be recognized. So Julie, I won't embarrass you too much, Julie, all right? So Julie began her career at LT in the 2006-2007 school year as one of our certified school nurses. Prior to joining us, she had previously worked in the same role in Western Springs District 101, as well as in nursing roles for various organizations, including Northwestern and the University of Illinois. Julie received her bachelor's degree in nursing from the University of Illinois, as well as a master's degree in public health administration from Loyola University Chicago, and additional graduate work from UIC as well. You know, I think overall, Julie's been a trusted health professional at both campuses throughout her career. Prior to 2020, the role of the school nurse was really significant, with ensuring that students and families were supported properly from an overall wellness perspective, but also with working really closely with the Illinois Department of Public Health and making sure that whole communities remain healthy. But in 2020, the role of the school nurse took on a whole new significance and even added meaning with the COVID-19 global pandemic. Julie thrived in this setting through her constant communication, her focus on students and community health, and really played the most important role ensuring that the LT community remained healthy and safe in the middle of a global pandemic. I think above all else, Julie is a respected colleague who always does what is best for our students and our community, and it's my honor tonight to present her with the Vita Plena Award. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. I'm honored and I'm humbled to be presented with this award, but I cannot accept it without sharing this with my staff at North Campus, Kathleen Brand-White, who is the only non-nurse who crawled through the pandemic, but I would often say, you know, without her, getting me back on task, answering the phone with calls that were not easy to handle. And really, a partner for me. Jovi Kecavelli, who is an RN, who has a wonderful disposition, a smile on her face, and as a team at North Campus, we really needed each other. My boss, who I won't look at because it will bring me tears, my friend and my boss through this very, very difficult time, Dr. Leslie Owens. If I had the ability to provide her with a second doctorate in nursing practice, I would have, because she really understood that piece of things and helped with the constantly changing demands and the constantly changing guidance and all that we needed to do to ensure that that we were working through this process that was constantly changing and evolving, and to try to do that with grace and professionalism. So I thank you, Leslie. My colleague at South Campus, Kathy Weber, who came in the middle of the pandemic to lead over at South Campus at and the staff at South Campus, many of whom I worked with for years before I was there for 12 years before I came over to North Campus. Cindy Murray and Kathy Weber. Did I say Kathy? Thank you for coming and thank you for staying through a very difficult time to get into this role. So I just want to say that I accept this, but I accept this with my whole team, and I really appreciate the recognition for us. So thank you very much, everybody. Yeah.
I know that I would personally like to say thank you, Julie, because I know that you sat in on some conversations during that challenging COVID process, and I really valued your input, and thank you to the team for being so nimble and pivoting in so many different challenging ways. You've really provided so much support for our students and our community, so thank you. And if anybody else on the board would like to add anything, feel free. Or that might sum it up. So thank you, Julie. Thank you very, very much.
And in a very celebratory way, that concludes my superintendent report for this evening.
Fabulous. That's great. Okay, next up we would have unfinished business, but there is no unfinished business this evening. So we'll move on to new business. And we'll start with two informational items from Human Resources, the first being capstone courses and courses with enrollments under 18. Mr. Piotrowski.
Ed, real quickly before you get started, I just wanted to say a few words just about staffing in general. So you'll notice on the agenda we have a series of items related all to the staffing process for the 23-24 school year. You know, as a reminder to the board, really in order to get to this point tonight, this all starts every year in January when students begin the process of working with their guidance counselors to select their courses for next year. So by February 24th of this year, all students had input their courses, their course requests, and their families and them had had a chance to review and make any changes. So between February 24th and tonight, our district admin team has went course by course to determine the number of sections needed, and as a result of that, determine staffing needs for next year. There's also, of course, legal timelines associated with this, and much of the information in your board packet tonight are really a byproduct of those legal timelines. So Ed's going to present the information and highlight the documents in your packet, but I think sometimes all of the documentation, the legal timelines, the FTE counts can obscure the fact that at the end of the day, this is about determining people. The outstanding people that we rely on every year to educate and support our almost 4,000 students and their families next school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ed, and he's going to walk us through this.
Thank you, President Dillon. Thank you, Dr. Waterman. As Dr. Waterman just stated, tonight we are going to go through a series of reports and recommendations, some that relate to individual courses and then others that relate to staffing, but they are all connected and they all relate back to students picking courses for their next year. The first item that's on the informational agenda tonight, which will have a recommendation for action at the April 3rd meeting, involves capstone courses and courses with enrollments under 18. As Dr. Waterman stated, when we are in the process of sectioning, we go class by class and literally look at the number of students who have selected to enroll in each class to determine the appropriate number of sections, and then as a result, the appropriate number of teachers that we would need in each department. We pay special consideration to two types of courses, capstone courses and courses that have an enrollment under 18. I'll speak a little bit more about the courses with enrollments under 18 when we get to that part of the report, but I wanted to start with capstone courses. A capstone course is a final course within a well-defined, multi-year course sequence within a department. Those capstone courses are reviewed by the central leadership team and the Board of Education each spring. That's part of this process right now. And special consideration is given to those courses if enrollment were to fall under 18. If possible, and given appropriate enrollment, the district would recommend that a capstone course is run during the school year to allow students to complete the full course sequence. What we would try to avoid, if at all possible, is students to take 2-3 years of a course sequence and then not be able to complete that. We want to show that their dedication in that program pays off with continued enrollment. A list of the capstone courses has been included for board review. Those are the first 2 pages of this memorandum. I do want to point out just one. We do have one capstone course, German Language and Culture AP, that shows an enrollment of 8 students. Now, normally, if this were any other class, we might not be recommending the class to run with 8 students. And oftentimes, when we do see capstone courses that have lower enrollments, especially in the world languages, we're able to partner them up with a different level in order to create a hybrid course, which is not uncommon in the majority of our world languages, Spanish being the exception. We would have done the same thing with German this year. However, the German 3 course, which we would naturally pair it up with, already had 26 students in that class. So it would be impossible for us to create one large section of that with 34 students. So we made the decision and felt it was appropriate to recommend German Language and Culture to run as a standalone class at 8 students. These are students who began their German language instruction, at least for course credit or for graduation credit, at LT. And we felt that it was appropriate to see it through and have these 8 seniors be able to complete German with the AP course and ultimately taking the AP exam at the end of the year. Again, all of the capstone courses are listed in the first 2 pages, as well as an enrollment history of what those capstone courses may have had in previous years. You'll see sometimes there is an increase one year over the next, and then sometimes a decrease. But if at all possible, we try to run the capstone courses. Are there any questions regarding any of the capstone courses?
I have a question.
Yes.
So it looks like there's one that only had 5 students, and then there's a 0 for how many sections we plan to offer. That would be French 5, level 4. That is, I have actual knowledge of that course is running currently. Mm-hmm. And I just was curious what the plan is for those 5 students and kind of why there's such a drop-off when there's such, if you have, you may not have the answers tonight, but my understanding is it might be a course that someone who's been in level 4 French would select as French 5, or it might be a course where if kids went through the great program with Indiana University and had college credit already in French 3 and French 4, correct, that they might not view an AP French class as being attractive because they've already maxed out the college credit and they don't need the AP, and this is an alternative. So any background on why is such a drop-off, and then what the plan is for those 5 students who were hoping to take that?
Absolutely. I'll answer the second part of your question first. We are going to be able to provide that class opportunity for those students. It's just going to be partnered with French language AP.
Oh, okay.
There's 18 students in that class. We're able to combine those two, so we don't have a standalone course in French 5, but we'll be able to, in French 5 honors, or excuse me, accelerated, but we are able to offer that for the students. So
Okay,
it's somewhat misleading in that the class alone alone isn't running, but it is run as a hybrid, which
Okay.
is very, very common within our world languages. You'll see within Spanish as well as French that we have students taking that 5th year, and that's because students can begin it at the junior high level, where we don't have that option in German, Italian, American Sign Language as well, and Latin. And so students who are in that French 5 program began that in 7th and 8th grade. Oftentimes, they took that French 4 AP or went the Indiana University route. This is another way for them to stay involved within a world language. And while the number in that particular section may decrease, we know the number of students who are maintaining 4 and 5 years worth of French, worth of Spanish is still very healthy.
So in summary, for the capstone courses, would it be fair to say that no student who selected a capstone course is being told you can't pursue that topic at least an approximate level?
We try very hard not to do that unless the enrollment was very low and we couldn't partner it up with another class. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ed, excuse me for a minute. Can you put the microphone a little closer to you? Allison's trying to listen in, and it's a little hard to hear. Thank you.
And Ed, to that same question on the French class we were just discussing, the numbers here of 23, 25, and 17, are those combined numbers as well for that course for previous years, or is that the individual numbers that were in that course for the last 3 years?
I'd have to check on that, Dawn. I could look to see what that would be.
Okay. And there was one other one. Okay, thank you. If I see the other question.
Okay, and then moving on to courses with enrollments under 18. This is another group of courses that we pay special consideration to. Ideally, we would want all of our courses to have healthy enrollments of over 18 students, but we know that that's not the case with all of our courses. There are situations where some courses are being recommended to run with fewer than 18 students per section. Oftentimes, we will see that by way of supported classes, classes for English learners, classes like our interdisciplinary workshop within social studies, and courses within the special education division. Those courses are going to be run with fewer than 18 students. For the case of special education courses, that's by state law. So we recommend running those classes fewer than 18 based on best practice and school code class size limits. As those guidelines apply to multiple courses within these areas, those courses are generally not included in the list of courses with enrollments under 18. There is one exception to that. You'll see PE modified, which is within our PE department, but that is a course that is run with adaptations for students with special needs. In addition to the supported classes, classes with enrollments under 18 fall into 3 general categories. Courses that have healthy enrollments and multiple sections being offered, but by the nature of dividing the total number of students, we may have sections that have under 18. An example of this is if we have 34 students that have elected to take a class. 34 would be too large for one section. We would offer that as 2 sections of 17. So that class would show up on the enrollments under 18. However, we do have healthy enrollment, enough to warrant 2 classes full of that class. Capstone and specialty courses, we already spoke about capstone classes, but specialty courses are also given special consideration when determining which courses will be offered the following year. Specialty courses may include courses that are not at the end of a well-defined sequence, but one where the course provides a unique opportunity for students. In these situations, and given appropriate enrollment, the district will recommend that course is being offered. We will see those sometimes within media arts, LTTV, for instance. That is a course that will, based on the number of workstations, is under 18, but we try to offer that to our students because it is a unique program. And then finally, courses with a value and a connection to subsequent courses in a course sequence are also given special consideration. We just spoke about capstone courses being the culmination of a sequence. What we have to be very cognizant of is that we are not stopping a sequence mid-sequence. So a student who might be 2 or 3 years into it, if we don't run that course, it doesn't provide an opportunity for that student to continue it. Now, obviously, we'd have to have appropriate enrollment, but we don't want to stop the sequence if at all possible. If a course within a sequence is not running, for instance, students may not have the opportunity to continue the sequence and eventually reach the capstone course. That is not to say that every course along the way of a sequence is always running, because we do know between North and South Campus there are multiple opportunities, but we know in certain cases when classes are only offered at one campus or the other based on facility limitations, we're cognizant of that when we are making those decisions. A list of the courses with enrollment under 18 has been included for board review. There are some courses that are being offered as part of a combined section, very similar to the French 5 example that we talked about in the capstone courses. For instance, Creative Writing 2 shows that we have 10 students in that. Creative Writing 2 is being offered in conjunction with Creative Writing 1. There are 37 total students, so we would run 2 sections of those. Advanced Digital Photo Art, that is a class that has students from Studio Art Accelerated and Studio Art AP, which are both capstone courses. So those two would be partnered together, again, to provide numbers that would be above that 18, but the Advanced Digital Photo Art in and of itself would be under. European History AP, that would be a class that would be combined with South Campus students. Those we would have commuting section, and there's a total of 24 total students, so European History AP in total would not fall under that. The same would go for American Sign Language 2 at North Campus. We did make the decision in this case to run it at a smaller amount because we have 52 students at South Campus in that same section. And we felt that having to commute all of the students from ASL2 North Campus to South would cause some students to not be able to make that commute. It would create a constraint in their schedule and thus might stop them from being able to continue that progression. So like we do with AP Physics 1 at South Campus, we sometimes create a standalone section, knowing that we have healthy enrollment at the other campus. And then finally, German 2 Prep and Excel. Again, this is combined, like I talked about with French, with a total of 16 students. We know that's a little bit smaller. However, we want students to be able to continue that pathway. If we didn't offer German 2, they would not have any avenue into German 3, and then finally German 4 AP. At this time, if there are any questions about any of the courses with enrollment under 18, we'd be happy to answer them.
I really appreciate that, what comes of this report, and that is that the effort is really put forth in making sure that our students have a consistent experience and they are able to fulfill their course requirements and achieve what they're looking to achieve.
Absolutely. As part of that process, when we are making determinations of whether or not a course should run or doesn't, if we make the determination that a course isn't going to run, we are always cognizant of, is there room in other courses so that those students who have selected it would be able to find a similar elective in that same department.
And I would imagine some of the classes that are combined, I was kind of looking at them as you were going through them, do we have a good sense that those are effective and work out well? Like I was thinking about the world languages, where it sounded like there was an AP class paired up, a small number of students, but paired up with a a different level, like a 3 level, I think. And we have a sense that we're still being very effective in
Absolutely.
academics.
Absolutely. And in fact, the courses outside of Spanish have been teaching those hybrid courses for so long that is part of their curriculum. If at all possible, it's great if we had healthy enrollments in each of those components and we were able to separate those out. But we know that if we don't have enrollments to run sections as standalone, that the teachers are confident and the curriculum has been designed to be able to teach those together.
That's great, and I too appreciate all the efforts that go into this to make sure that we're able to deliver. We have such an amazing course book and such a plethora of offerings to make sure that those continue to be accessible. I really appreciate the efforts that are made to accommodate the differences with our 2 campuses too, that when we have a healthy enrollment or a burgeoning healthy enrollment, that we make the accommodations to take care of running a class when we have that type of interest and demand. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So at this time, this is an informational item only. At the April 3rd meeting, this would be something that would take board action on.
Great. Okay. Next up, we have the certified staff leaves of absence. Back to you.
Thank you, President Dillon. This is also related to staffing for the next year. And while the title says certified staff leave of absence, we are familiar with requests for leaves of absence on a temporary basis. We see that as part of consent agenda materials pretty much every month from the certified and the classified side. These requests are a little bit different. These are requests that are essentially for a certified staff member to request a part-time assignment for the upcoming school year. Part-time assignments are based on part-time availability of sections. And so, for instance, if we have a 0.6 assignment, for simplicity's sake, that is teaching 3 instructional periods in a day, and that's how the sectioning shakes out, we would reach out to the division chair and say, we have a 0.6 assignment within special education. The special education division chair would talk to their teachers, find out if people are interested in. We may have a tenured certified staff member who is interested in that. The district, in order for a district to put someone into that role, it can happen 2 ways. The district can go through a reduction in force for that staff member, which we would not want to do, or that staff member could request a part-time assignment by way of essentially a leave of absence over the course of a year for a part-time assignment. This upcoming school year, we do have part-time availability within our math department, and we have 1 math teacher who has requested a part-time assignment. That is what this request is. I've had conversations with this math teacher. This is an ongoing request, and she has been in this assignment for multiple years, so she's aware that if there is fluctuations within the enrollment, she would accept those fluctuations in the enrollment. But at this time, we would recommend, and again, this is information for tonight, it would be on the approval for the April 3rd to approve that request for essentially a part-time leave of absence to create a part-time assignment for that teacher because 1 already exists.
I remember seeing that last year too. And how often, does this how often does this become available every year? It seems like it's usually just like 1 position or...
They can become available every year, and they can become available in every department, really, if the section's warranted. So the first thing we do is we create sections based on student need and student request, and then should there be part-time availability, that's when it's made available to people. So we also let everyone know who is requesting it, that there's being in a part-time assignment 1 year does not guarantee a part-time assignment in subsequent years. It also doesn't guarantee that if there is part-time that it's going to be at that same level, because each year is truly a whole new set of data and a whole new set of student enrollments. And in the future, if we do have people that are requesting, because we do have some part-time availability in some other areas, we'll just come forward back to the board with additional requests for part-time.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Absolutely.
We're going to kind of stick with you, I guess. Next step, we have the first reading of administrative and certified staff non-tenured employment recommendations for 2023-2024.
Thank you, President Dillon. Going back to what Dr. Waterman had started out with, this process begins with students selecting courses and culminates with the district hearing, or the board hearing recommendations for special enrollments, as well as administrative and certified non-tenure employment recommendations for the upcoming school year. Before we get into the actual memo, what I wanted to do is preface that with some of the data behind it. Using the process that Dr. Waterman and I have talked about, as well as taking into consideration the capstones and the courses under 18, the district is recommending an overall instructional FTE increase of 2.5 staff members. Just as a bit of a reminder, FTE represents full-time employment, so 2.5 FTE means 2.5 full-time instructional staff members from 1 year to the next. This increase can be attributed to multiple factors, but the greatest of which is the continued expansion of the co-teaching model within special education. This year, our co-teaching model was in English and in social studies. We are expanding that to multiple departments and a great deal more classes next year, which has an increased need for additional staff members out of our special education department. Our special education department is the one that is seeing the most growth for next year. Additionally, members of the administrative team have been working to develop a staffing model for the shift to a full bilingual program. Dr. Owens, Mr. Agerding, members, Karen Reno from the Language Arts Division, and other members of the team have been working with the Illinois State Board of Education to help develop that plan. While sectioning numbers don't reflect this increase, they do in a way, but they don't reflect the full increase. We believe that we will need approximately 6.0, maybe slightly higher, FTE of bilingual Spanish educators for next year to support our English language learners. We anticipate employing a model that's very similar to our current co-teaching model within special education, where a bilingual Spanish teacher would be partnered with a content area teacher within those, say for instance, health. We have healthy enrollment within Health EL, which would become Health Bilingual. That health teacher would be working with the bilingual teacher to provide content instruction and language instruction to the students. We're doing this in a way that would allow us to provide that support while also being realistic about being able to find adequate staffing and not have to go through a reduction in force with existing teachers if there is a possibility that we're not able to find all of those bilingual teachers. So we know we are committed to it, and we are ideally getting to that staffing level right away, but we also know that it may take time, and we've communicated that with the state. So while I said that number of 2.5 does not include that, we are anticipating that. We have posted an anticipated bilingual Spanish teaching position, and we know we are going to start looking for bilingual Spanish teaching candidates that we could then add into those numbers. When those staffing recommendations are made, we'll come back to the board and make them aware of it, and then at the end, when all of the staffing is complete, we will come back to the board with the total FTE increase. And then finally, in years past, the district has asked the board for a 0.4 FTE to be used discretionarily. And the reason for that is there comes sometimes, generally towards the end of the school year and over the summer, where we find the need to add another section of a course. Oftentimes, those increases come in supported areas, whether it's English learners or within special education because of the smaller class sizes and the legal requirements. Knowing that there is not a Board of Education meeting in July, what we don't want to do is wait until August for board approval for those sections, because that could be detrimental to student scheduling and being able to find a teacher. So we've asked in the past, and the board has been so gracious in the past, to approve an additional 0.4 discretionary FTE to use as we see fit should we have a need to add those sections. In many years, we've had to use those. This past year, we did not have to use any of that discretionary FTE, so that number that the board approved last year did not have to get augmented by that 0.4. We would like to request that again this year. As in years past, if we do need to use any of that discretionary FTE, we report back to the board that this is what we used, this is when we used it, and this is the course that we used it on. Are there any questions about that process?
Ed, I'm just curious. I mean, I really appreciate you walking through the co-teaching model in support of our EL students. I'm so excited about that. I mean, in recent years, how challenging do you think that will be to fill those necessary positions?
To find bilingual educators, it certainly is going to be a challenge. There is a higher level of Illinois State Board of Education licensure for it. We do have quite a few teachers that have English as a second language endorsements, and so we are working to have the content teacher for all of those bilingual areas be someone who is endorsed with an ESL endorsement. We're able to do that in most, if not all, areas. I believe we may have one department where that's not a possibility, but people are working towards it. Finding someone with a bilingual Spanish endorsement is a different challenge. That's a higher level of endorsement. We've done things. Just this past Saturday, I was at an Illinois bilingual educator job fair, meeting with candidates who have that bilingual license. So we've made them aware that we are looking for staff and we will be hiring. But across the state, schools have seen an increase in English learners, and so many are looking for those as well. We are optimistic and hopeful that we would be able to staff all 6 or just a little bit over 6. I think it's 6.2 or 6.4. But we also know that if we're not able to staff all of those, we are able to match the bilingual teachers up with the areas that are in the highest needs and then address the others through either an EL model or some other hybrid model. But we will certainly be working with or colleges and universities that offer ESL endorsements to see if they have bilingual candidates, getting our name out there by way of the job fairs and other things in order to recruit and attract candidates.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any legal ramifications? Are there any legal ramifications if you can't fill those spots and you're doing it as?
Yeah, I don't know if Leslie or Scott, you wanted to talk about those.
As part of the audit, obviously, they're looking at our model and what our student needs are. So based on our numbers of EL students, specifically the number of students that all speak Spanish, that's why we need to have this full-time program. So legal ramifications would be that we're not in compliance with school code or the mandates from the state, and we would just have to keep working to fill those positions. One thing about the bilingual certification is staff can take the bilingual exam and be provisionally certified and then have 5 years to take the courses in order to become fully bilingually certified. So that's one option too, to try to help get more staff in the pipeline. But like Ed said, it's competitive out there right now because so many schools in Illinois are facing the same shortage and the same increase in students and the same shortage in educators.
Because I guess my struggle is like, how do you get around that without being in, you know what I mean, to be in compliance? I mean, really probably what you had said, going to job fairs and making incentives and things like that.
I was going to say that being able to incentivize educators to increase their certification and expand their skills. So we'll keep continuing to promote that with our staff, knowing that that's the needs of our students, and we don't see our EL numbers going down anytime soon. We see them increasing. So we've got a pool of educators here that are interested in helping our students. So if we can leverage that and have more people expand their certification, I think that's one of our better bets.
Part of that audit too, they want to see that we're making the effort, right? So if we were to say, oh, they're not out there, and we don't try to match them with other teachers, we've matched paraprofessionals who are bilingual. We've done a number of things prior to this step for the needs of our students already. So as we continue to do those things, that also shows good faith that we're moving in that direction.
Right, because you can't necessarily, I mean, I guess my concern is you can't necessarily like wave a magic wand and have them appear. Right. So how do you combat that, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a struggle, I'm sure.
It's a statewide struggle.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I just want to check in to make sure I heard. So it looks like you'll be looking for a net increase of 2.5 FTEs with a point for discretionary.
Correct, at this point.
And that's after everything, that's what we know right now, after everything washes out with some fluctuation in courses that are causing a reduction in force.
Correct.
Because we've lost certain numbers in those courses.
Correct.
And that's where we net out the 2.5.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, the bilingual would be in addition to that because we would employ a co-teaching model, but we have seats for every student. That's included in that 2.5.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Then moving on to the actual memo. This memo is really the culmination of all of that work because as Dr. Waterman mentioned, there are school code timelines for if a district has to engage in a reduction in force or a non-renewal of certified, non-tenured certified staff members. It has to be done within a certain number of days or prior to a certain number of days at the end of the school year. So we used to have the two special board meetings in March. These meetings that we are having now and then on April 3rd will meet those timelines. The first memo, that administrative and certified non-tenure employment recommendations, is broken up into 4 parts. That first section pertains to non-tenured certified staff that are being recommended for honorable dismissal or non-renewal at the end of the school year. I do want to point out that this year we have 4 non-tenured certified staff members that are being honorably dismissed. None of those staff members are being dismissed for reasons for performance, for conduct. It is all based on available sections based on enrollment. All 4 are currently part-time staff members, and they're only being recommended for release due to a loss in departmental sections, as you just mentioned, Dawn, but not based on any concerns with the staff members' teaching performance. It is not uncommon, and we've seen in the past, staff members who are listed in the Section 1 report in order to meet a school code timeline are later brought back either on a part-time basis or on a full-time basis should sections exist and they are interested in and properly certified and qualified to teach. So that being on that Section 1 list does not mean it's the end of an employment for a staff member. Oftentimes, they may be brought back. Section 2 pertains to non-tenured certified staff members that are being recommended for rehire at either a part-time or a full-time basis for the upcoming school year. These recommendations are grouped in terms of employment status, from returning on a part-time basis all the way through a recommendation for tenure. And that is broken into those different tables. I'm excited to recommend 9 certified staff members for tenure upon successful completion of this school year. Section 3 pertains to non-tenured certified administrative staff that are being recommended for honorable dismissal or non-renewal at the end of the school year. There are no recommendations for dismissal or non-renewal for non-tenured certified administrators. And then finally, Section 4 pertains to non-tenured certified administrative staff that are being recommended for rehire for the upcoming school year. We have 10 non-tenured certified administrators we are recommending for renewal, including 1 that we are recommending for tenure upon successful completion of this school year. This material will return to the board for a second reading and approve at the April 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. At this time, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay, thank you.
Good? Great.
Like halfway through with my stuff, so.
Exactly. So the next item is the first reading of the, is it the honorable? Wait.
Yeah, the resolutions.
Right, follow mine. Right. Oh, right here, sorry, I'm losing track. Our next item is the first reading of the resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal or reduction of teachers for 2023-2024.
Thank you, President Dillon. The resolutions that are on the subsequent pages to the memo that we just talked about relate to all of that information. They relate to the 4 staff members who are being honorably dismissed, as well as any that have a reduction from the previous memo. You'll notice only 1 staff member listed for the reduction, and that's because a person who may be part-time returning on part-time, it might not be a reduction. It could be equal, it could be an increase. So that's why the names might appear slightly different, but those are the resolutions that, again, as part of the second reading on April 3rd, would become finalized. Staff members that are being honorably dismissed or have a reduction would then get a formal letter from the Board of Education making them aware of it. And again, this would be part of a second reading for approval at the April 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting.
Sounds good. And then next up is the first reading of the 2023-2024 Instructional Aid Paraprofessional Staff Employment Recommendations.
Thank you, President Dillon. This is very similar to what we just spoke about as it related to non-tenured certified staff. However, this is related to first-year paraeducator staff. As part of the negotiated agreement with our Paraeducator Association, all first-year paraeducators are released during this time frame for the end of the school year. And they are released because at this time, we don't know our staffing need for paraeducators for the upcoming school year. The majority of our paraeducators serve students with special needs, and IEP meetings, reevals, those are all happening right now. The determination for staffing generally gets finalized at the end of June, beginning of July. So what ends up happening is all the first-year paraeducators that are released are then recalled, should positions exist, and they are recalled in the order of their seniority. We have 9 first-year paraeducators this year, and should positions exist, we would then recall all of them based on the order in which they came to the district, with the first person coming to the district being the first person to be recalled, the last person coming to the district being the last person to be recalled. And again, this is a first read. This would come to the Board of Education for a second read at the April 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. I do want to point out one unique feature about this. We will inevitably, and when I say inevitably, it's because I know this is going to happen because we are talking to someone right now about a job opportunity, hire a paraeducator after the board takes this action. What ends up happening is that we would hire that person and release that person on the same day, but the release would be effective at the end of the school year. I've already communicated this to the prospective staff member, so they are aware of it. It just looks odd when you see that on a consent agenda. You know, Carrie Dillon hired, Carrie Dillon, released. It's just because we want that is also a first-year staff member, and we have to make sure that we are following that same process.
And Ed, is this cycle pretty standard across other districts as well? I mean,
It is, yeah, it is, because the number of positions is based on the student need. And so at this time, we know the number of students that we may have, especially within special education, but we might not know the level of support. And so that is something that is being worked out right now.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Our next item then is the student services request for additional staff.
We actually had one more that we jumped up, the administrative staff contract renewal.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I didn't have that outlined here, but I see it in our packet. Thank you.
No
Thanks
worries.
for pointing that out.
So the last item, which is a first read, is the administrative staff contract renewal. And this is very similar, but different to what we just talked about with non-tenured certified administrative staff. This is a contract renewal for all of our tenured certified administrators. The timelines are different than what we explained in school code before, but at this time we have 10 tenured certified administrators, and all of these 10 have already earned tenure within the district, so we don't need to go through the same process that we did in those 4 sections. But at this time, we are recommending that the Board of Education rehire each one of those 10 for the upcoming school year. It's always a little weird when I do this because my name is on there, so I am recommending my rehire. I do understand the irony of that, but at this time, we would be making that recommendation. This would be this is informational for tonight, but then for action at the April 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Now we're done.
Now we can move on to the next item, which is the student services request for additional staff. Both Dr. Owens and Mr. Piotrowski.
Thank you, President Dillon. This was in at our Committee of the Whole packet, and just to briefly go over was just the kind of progression from student services 4 years ago of expanding the department by reallocating some counseling staff to get us to 4 counselors per grade level, increasing a part-time social worker, adding an assistant division chair and 504 coordinator, and then also adding in another 1.0 social worker. So that is the request. We are hoping to shift one of our social workers from the special education department into student services, and with the hire of an additional 1.0, that would put us at 8 full-time social workers across 4 grade levels, who would still certainly be meeting all of our special education students' needs, but also have the opportunity to work together as a full team and provide supports to all of our students. So that is the recommendation for an additional 1.0 FTE for a social worker.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about this last week, so let me just start by saying again how thrilling it is to see these ratios of counselors and social workers continue to go down over the 4 years as this has evolved, along with the summer workshops that are planning and all the efforts and restructuring to making sure that we have the right supports in place for our students. Does the 1 FTE for this ad part of the 2.5 net that we talked about, or is that additional?
That is not, because it has not been approved, and the 2.5 was just based on instructional, so students picking courses.
So
this would be viewed as non-instructional support of FTE.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? I also agree. Really, really excited about the improvements and the supports and building them out for our students within the Student Services Division. So thanks for that work.
Thank you, and thanks to the board for their support over the years to get us to this recommendation.
Awesome. Is there a motion then to approve additional staffing requests for the 2023-2024 school year for student services for an additional 1.0 FTE?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Member Daniels?
Yes.
Member Brett?
Yes.
Member Kelly? Member Swinehart?
Wait, I think
Yes.
she's here. Allison?
Yes.
Okay. I know she's here. She's having a hard time hearing, so.
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes. Great, thank you. Woo-hoo. Our next item is the first reading of the summer workshop proposal. Scott Eggerding.
Thank you, President Dillon. We do have quite a bit of large number of requests here for summer workshops. There is one change from our Committee of the Whole where we went into each of these in detail, and that also is an outgrowth of that ISB EL bilingual audit. We want to get, as it says in the description, some of our EL course curriculum maps need updating to include the new Spanish language arts standards and to more fully infuse the English language development standards. In addition, World History EL and US EL need to clearly identify units that address the histories and cultures of native lands of our EL students. Teachers will use this time to learn about their respective standards more fully and revise their curricula to reflect these needed components. So as we have been primarily an EL English language learner program, where all languages are combined. Now that we are looking to split out our Spanish-speaking students as a part of that bilingual program as required by the statute, we want to make sure that we have all those details in there. So that's what that additional workshop is for. Other than that, there have been no changes to the other workshops. We are reviewing, we'll review one more time prior to the second read for any changes that also might occur. And along the same lines, we've been meeting with the curriculum review teams. This is our last round, will be actually tomorrow, finalizing our summer workshops as well. So we should have names and dates and, a little more detail ready for a second read. And then we can get ready to continue planning for our summer work. It is, as is noted in the packet, a proposal of $102,708, $61,600 of which will be paid for by title funds, $41,000 coming from district funds. And as we've also noted, we do estimate these at the high level, at the high rate of our pay. We are going through teacher negotiations, so we're looking at pay and making sure that everything matches whatever. If there are any changes that come out of that, we'll certainly have to make those adjustments. But in years past, just given the range of pay and also people's availability, we tend to only expend about 80% of the requested dollars. So we will certainly keep the board aware of that, and in the fall, if you recall, we'll give you a report of the work that was done. So with a final calculation. So at this point, as a first reading, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and you'll see it again next month.
Went through a lot of it, the content last time, so thank you. Okay, great. I'll see that again next for the second reading. Our next item is the review of closed session minutes to see if they should remain confidential. Is there a motion that the board make a finding that after reviewing its closed session minutes in accordance with Section 2.06D of the Open Meetings Act, that the need for confidentiality still exists for all of the board's existing closed session minutes? Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes. Thank you. Our final item is the review and destruction of verbatim recordings of closed sessions. Can we have a motion that the board authorize the board secretary to destroy all existing verbatim recordings that are 18 months or older in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, which are listed in the superintendent's memo to the board dated March 20th, 2023, as they were created at least 18 months prior to this meeting, and the board has previously approved written minutes of the closed meeting where such verbatim recordings were created? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Which one? Jill?
Sure.
And second? You, Jill?
I had said so moved. I can second it.
Okay.
I know, I couldn't hear anything down there. Sorry.
Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Member Gretsch?
Yes.
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Member O'Bear?
Yes.
Member Daniel?
Yes.
Member Dillon?
Yes. We have now reached the consent agenda. Our consent agenda includes the following items: payment of bills and financial statements for LTHS and LADSI, human resource items for LTHS and LADSI, review and approval of the meeting minutes, open and closed session, IHSA membership renewal for 2023-2024, and overnight student travel request approvals. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marilyn, can you call the roll, please?
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Swinehart?
Yes.
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 Yes. At this time, the board will now adjourn into closed session. The board will not be taking action following this closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performances, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. 5 Illinois CS 120-2C1. And collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 Illinois CS 120-2C2.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Marilyn, can you call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Have a great week.